Hey guys, happy Friday and welcome to another episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. So let's jump right in and talk about what happened today. Started the morning off with the beautiful double cab, working on the brakes a little bit. Let's show you what I did here. Started putting the rear brake lines together so you can see brake hose there to the T-fitting and then hard line. You can see it running up over from the T-fitting up over neatly, back down to this side, and then the rubber line out to here. I was going to put the drums and backing plates and brakes and everything together because I thought I was getting all that stuff back from powder coating, but a little delay there, so it didn't work, or they didn't get it done. They're gonna have it Monday, so I couldn't do the sort of outer hard lines because I don't have anything to bolt the wheel cylinder and everything to run the line, to route the line. So stop there. I was going to run the hard line from the back to the front, but I ran into a problem with the master cylinder and or reservoir that I have for this car. Again, this is an early bay window, and so some things are kind of weird, like 1-2 year only, and you can't get some of that stuff, so I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm doing, maybe try a different source other than Wolfsburg West. But here's the deal right now. With the reservoir that sits on top of the master cylinder, I think I talked about this the other day, and then there's a tube that runs and a little fill reservoir in the cabin of the car. So the issue is this reservoir, and I don't know what this one's made for. I think it's made for a later bus, maybe like a 70 and up. This is facing in completely the wrong direction for this bus, at least. I think on the later buses, the fill reservoir is maybe like under the seat, which I guess one option could be to mount it there. But strictly speaking, for this bus, what's correct is that this tube should be coming out through the front of the reservoir so front of the bus is this way. So for this one, this should be coming out this way, and then the reservoir sits up, if you're sitting in the cab, kind of off to the side of the dash on this side. So this is completely wrong. This is going in the wrong direction. I can't just flip this reservoir around because, as you can see, it's got a clearance in it for this switch here. And it didn't even fit this reservoir that well. I had to bend these tabs out of this switch here, which clear fine now, but I was a little irritated that I had to do that. So I don't know what's going on. I think this master cylinder may not be the right one. This reservoir may not be the right one, or maybe one of these is right, one of them's wrong. I'm not entirely sure. Well, actually, I'm pretty sure this is wrong. This may be okay. But anyway, long story short, I gotta figure some things out here. I literally just thought as I was talking, maybe the best solution is to go ahead and use this and then mount the reservoir under the seat like on a later bus. So I'm actually gonna look into that. Maybe that's the easiest and cleanest solution, because the fill reservoir that's available, which is this one, isn't even right for an early bay window bus. I think this is for maybe like a 70 and up. I don't know. So none of the stuff quite matches correctly for this bus. But again, this is a custom bus. So, as long as we can get things to fit together and be functional and safe, then at the end of the day, that's really what we need. So anyway, long story short, I couldn't really mount this until I get this all figured out. So I couldn't run the hard line from this to the back of the bus. So kind of stopped there with that and got on to the Ghia. I thought, okay, let me get this poor guy, owner's name is Jim. Let me get Jim back his Ghia. Had kind of a busy week, and I've been kind of procrastinating taking this car for another drive. And I took it for another drive, and lo and behold, it was still stalling sometimes when coming to a stoplight or a stop sign. And I'm like, okay, I can't give this car to the owner like that. Something's not right. And so I started kind of poking around the carburetor some more, and there were a bunch of issues, and there's still at least one. And so basically what I found was that fuel was dripping out of the center of the carburetor. So there's the idle circuit, which has little holes in the carburetor kind of down here below the plate that opens and closes as your throttle moves. And then there's the high-speed circuit, which is all kind of here, so above the throttle plate, but below the choke plate. Well, at idle, fuel was basically coming out of the main circuit here, which it should not unless you're like revving the piss out of it and getting the carburetor up onto that main circuit. It was just dribbling out of there all the time, which again, it's not supposed to do. So basically started working through, essentially the checklist of all the things that could cause that. Float too high, float weight wrong, the fuel pressure too high, et cetera, et cetera. So a couple things. One is I tried putting more shims in the float to get the float level down a little lower. That didn't help. Tried a different needle and seat valve, thinking maybe I had a defective one. It did have a new one in it, but that didn't help at all. Fuel pressure, I borrowed a fuel pressure gauge from another shop, and lo and behold, the fuel pressure was 5.5 or 6, way too high. Should be 2 to 3 for these stock carburetors. So started trimming down the push rod for the fuel pump and finally got the pressure down to 2.5, a little bit at a time, and lo and behold, the carburetor is still dripping at idle. So after going through all that, and this took a lot longer than it sounds like, after going through all that, I've kind of come to the conclusion that this carburetor is cursed, and it probably has a crack in it somewhere, or something is not right in this carburetor. It should not be puking out fuel through the main circuit at idle with the fuel pressure now correct, and everything's correct, needle and seat's good, and float height's adjusted well. Something is wrong with this carburetor, the body itself, I'm sure, because pretty much eliminated all the things that could cause it to drip other than the carburetor body itself being bad. So pretty frustrating morning and afternoon trying to chase my tail, getting this thing to work right, and it still doesn't work right. Spoke to the owner. He's got some carburetors that his dad had for this car in storage. He's going to dig through those, see what he's got. Maybe he has another 34 pick 3, which is what this one is, and we can clean that one up and try it out. Maybe it'll work better, or we can go with aftermarket carburetor of some sort and sort it out, because it's never going to run quite right, and it's always probably going to be somewhat erratic with fuel dribbling through the main circuit like that at idle. There's no way to adjust the carburetor right with that going on, because you can't really control that amount of fuel, and it's not made to be controlled because it shouldn't be there. Anyway, so yeah, long story short, kind of stuck on this one. Hopefully we'll get some another carburetor from the owner that's maybe in better shape, and see if we can get it to run well with that one. Otherwise, I'm going to buy probably a Solex H3031, which are actually really great little carburetors. A little small for this motor, but at the end of the day, it might limit 1 or 2 horsepower on the top end. Nothing the owner would ever notice. The downside is you have to run a little adapter plate between the manifold and the carburetor. It's like a little aluminum piece, maybe 1/2 inch tall. We spent a lot of time and so on getting this motor to look perfect and stock with all the correct pieces on it. So to have that little adapter in there, and it's just, we're trying to avoid that, but at the end of the day, it's more important that the car runs well. So I don't know, we're gonna see what happens. We're still gonna kind of play this one by ear. Anyway, that's pretty much all that happened today, other than the fact that the red bug is back at the paint shop, and they've assured me before, but they assured me that they were going to touch up that paint tomorrow and also finish up the bus, which is going to go right there. That's the turquoise 64 21 window. So yeah, hopefully Monday I'll be getting those 2 back and continue working on everything else. This one's done. This one can go back to its owner. So that's it, guys. Hope everyone enjoyed this, and we'll see you next week. Have a good weekend.